Hello everybody and welcome back once again to Flyout. Sorry, it's not another Sprocket video. Look, I'm having too much fun, alright? I'm just playing it, and if I'm playing it, then I may as well be recording it. So today we're going to be building a heavy fighter. So this thing is very heavily inspired by the bow fighter, which I'm sure you will see the inspiration for when the thing starts looking a little bit more like its final form. Obviously at the moment we're just working on the very basic structure of the fuselage. But yeah, it's the first time that I'll have made an aircraft on video that has two engines. First time I've made an aircraft with two engines at all, actually. Now, there were a couple of more exciting twin-engine designs I wanted to go for, but I figured since I am still quite new to this game that I would just start with something a little bit more down-to-earth like this. So maybe in the future we can do something a little bit more fun, like maybe a Zwillings or various different options are available. But for now, a kind of default-looking heavy fighter is probably a solid bet for a first twin prop. Now, obviously, twin props have a couple of very big advantages over single prop designs, mostly to do with torque cancellation. So, with a single propeller, you've obviously got to deal with the spinning of your big metal fan actually imparting a certain amount of torque on the aircraft itself, which causes it to roll to one side. Now you can cancel that out by putting the engine to one side, having a wing that's slightly longer than the other one, having the engine crankshaft spin in a different direction to the propeller, I think is a method you can use at least in this game. I don't know, not 100% sure on that last one, but there's various different methods to cancel it out, or other option, have two of them. And that's what we've got here. So we've just got two big radial engines, and one of them is rotating clockwise, one of them is rotating counterclockwise. So that just means that we fly perfectly straight, and we don't need to worry about any of those methods because we got two engines. So it's very much an easier design to actually build in this game because you'd have to worry about designing for those roll features. But obviously you do still have the problem of we've still got those big metal spinning fan things, and those are quite a pain in the arse to deal with. So I've recorded, once again, our building segment here in the fast forward has no technical elements of the aircraft. What we're going to do, as per last video, is I'm going to do a short segment where we're kind of putting the functional elements into the aircraft and taking it out on flights, on intervals, and kind of coming towards a finalized design which will fly out towards the end, and you can have a look at it, and once again you can name it, because last video I got you to name my heavy kind of early jet aircraft, kind of like a Supermarine Swift, and I'm pretty sure that I have found the name. It's going to be the FGA2, which I like the reasoning behind that. A lot of people suggested naming it like FA or other things. I think FGA sounds more British, so that's the one I'm going to go with. And then the voted name was Harpy. So FGA2 Harpy is going to be the name for that previous aircraft from last video. And then this video, you can name this one whatever you desire. So, yeah, good luck on that one. But anyway, now to the technical bit. Okay, so here we have, in all visual aspects, our heavy fighter. Now, we've not put anything on this thing to actually work yet, just like we didn't before, other than the landing gear. So that does work, although apparently they just got longer when I clicked them, but okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put on some engines, and I'm going to try and explain a little bit about how piston engines work in this game, because they are a little bit more complex to get working than your typical jet engine is. So first things first, obviously, we got to put a piston engine in, and you may be thinking that's a V engine, which is not what you're going to want in a fairing like this, but don't worry, it's under this tab here. We've got arrangement, and we can pick radial in there, and this is a little bit more like it. So by default, we've got a pretty weird engine configuration, which is very long. I'm going to shorten it down. We're going to go with the same kind of engine as the bow fighter had. Obviously, this has very strong bow fighter influence, so I'm going to go with something a little bit Brittle Hercules. So we're going to have a 14-cylinder across 2 rows. So that's 7 cylinders per row with 2 rows. and we're going to aim for about 1500 horsepower per engine. So we can check this performance curve here. And at the moment, this is in kilowatts, so we just got to do a simple little conversion. Okay, so we're overpowered here. We actually only need about 1,100, so we can actually kind of turn these engines down a bit. We're going to go to 2 valves, maybe. Let's see what we can do. Maybe change the mixture up a bit. We can adjust them and then plot them on this graph. Now, our RPM is very low, so we can do something about that. If we reduce the stroke of the engine but increase the bore, that can actually change how the RPM looks. So there, you can see we're making a lot more power now, but that's at a much higher RPM, so that's the kind of thing we want. Unfortunately, that does seem to mean that we're going to have very powerful engines if we want to actually fill these fairings. So I'm going to tweak the settings a little bit, and I'll get back to you when I'm closer to something that I'm happy with. Okay, so we've got something a little bit more to our liking here. So this is a little bit of a smaller engine than we had before, and I've taken the exact bore and the stroke from the Hercules and also supercharged it as the real life version of the engine was, and therefore our performance is a little bit closer. It's not identical by any stretch of the imagination, but here about 1300 kilowatts seems to be slightly over 1500 horsepower and at a slightly lower RPM. Well, I say slightly, it's like 700 lower RPM, but you know, look, I'm not the best at making engines. It does the job. So we're going to put on the next part that we need, which is a gearbox. Obviously, the engine is going to need a gearbox, and we can hold X and Y at the same time to make sure that this goes in the exact center of the fuselage, and that has not done a very good job of mirroring it, has it? Okay, there we go. We just needed to tweak it just a little bit. I think it's getting a little bit confused because my pilot is slightly offset from the center of the aircraft, which maybe I should fix, but, you know, I kind of like it. It feels kind of right, you know? I would like to get another guy sat next to him, but I really don't think we are. There's not a lot of space going on in there. Okay, and now we've got those. We need to go and put on a propeller on these, and we're going to do the same X and Y, and then the fix that I found for this slight problem with the center being slightly off is to just adjust them, and they seem to pick up where they should probably be. And we're gonna go for 3-blade here, just because that's what the real life bow fighter had. Obviously 4-blade might be a little bit better, and we're gonna have to scale these up quite significantly because the plane is a little bit large. Now, the actual difficulty that we're going to encounter with these is it's kind of hard to make propellers work efficiently at all speeds because the pitch of your propeller is extremely important. So I'm going to put in some values, and these may not be correct, but they're roughly what I put on another aircraft, so they're probably closer to what we want. So we're going to go with about like 42 degrees at the base, 12 in mid, and 2 at top. So that gives us this shape of a propeller. You can see they actually do visually change as well. So if we do like -2, you can see the tips ever so slightly change. If we go like -100, they very significantly change to the point where they look absolutely wild, which is just insanely cool that that is actually visually represented, and something I really didn't expect when I first started making engines in this. And then all of these things are linked up properly. So we've got to do a little bit of experimentation to find out if we've got the right propeller pitch, if we've got the right amount of power, if we've got the right gearbox ratio, and I will update you on how that's going. But you don't want to see the whole process because this could take me quite a while. Okay, so I've found some pretty decent settings here, and you may be wondering what I've been doing. So I've been going into the gearbox here, and you can see the gear zero ratio was previously 2.5, it's now 1.3. So the way I've been working out how I want to get that is I've been loading into the game as so. And below us, you can see a very big block of fuel. So this is basically just weight to make sure we're not going anywhere. And then we can right-click on our propeller, and we can look at our RPM versus our thrust. So let me just actually turn these engines back on here. And we can throttle up, which is getting a little bit loud, but oh well. And we can use 3 and 4 to adjust our propeller's pitch, which also adjusts how much work the engines are doing, which changes our RPM. So by doing so, we can play around until our thrust figure reaches a peak. So the best thrust figure that I could find was at this speed, I could get about 32 here. So 1,640 RPM seems to be the peak power that this thing can output at. So what we're going to do is we're going to return to our hangar now, and we're going to go to our propellers, and we're going to set them to a target RPM of 1,640. And in theory, that should mean we're at a pretty optimal RPM the entire time. Now, you can adjust this manually, but I can't be bothered. You can just spend your whole time flying around, setting your RPM and whatever to the ideal amount at whatever altitude, whatever speed you're at. It's a lot of work, so we're just going to go with a constant speed here. For the sake of my sanity and also flying skills, which are limited. And now, there may be better things we can do to optimize these propellers a bit more, but I'm going to take it out for a flight. We're going to see how fast we can go at sea level, and hopefully we're not too sluggish, but our prop pitch may well still be really badly off. We'll have to see. Okay, so unlike with our first prop aircraft, this one obviously has 2 engines, so we don't have to worry about torque quite as much, and all of my control surfaces are completely and utterly inverted, which is a little bit difficult to fly with, I must admit. But there you go. What can you do? We'll adjust that when we get back to our hangar, but at the moment, this is looking pretty promising. Obviously, we are a twin-engined heavy fighter, so we're not going to have the best top speed. If I could achieve something along the lines of between like 450 and towards 500-ish, I reckon that's pretty good. And it seems like we're definitely in for that kind of a speed. We're still accelerating now at 430, and if we do reach a point where we stop accelerating, we can actually just tweak our throttle input a little tiny bit to have a bit more speed. So now you can see we've leveled off. We can just adjust our RPM down. So I'm just going to drop the RPMs a little bit, and as you can see, that gets our top speed just into that 450 km/h range, which I think is actually about what I expected. So I'm pretty happy with that, all things considered. And I have just remembered that we do actually have flaps on this thing. So if I... now, God, how do I do this? I've forgotten the buttons. I think it's 1 and 2. There we go. 1. We've set our flaps back to 0. Let's get back to sea level. We're going to gain a bit of speed in the dive, and I'll try and not crash because my controls are a bit off. Let's see if the flaps were slowing us down any. Because obviously we were going 450 before. Can we maintain 464? That's pretty good. Okay. So that's obviously without armament, but 460 isn't too shabby at all, and the agility is honestly not all that bad given that it's a heavy fighter. I'm going to say that's not too bad. So let's adjust our control surfaces to actually go in the direction that we want them to. And maybe we can look at arming this thing and giving it a little paint job. Okay, I've changed the control surfaces so that they're all working now, and we're just going to have to work out where we're going to put the armament. So we've got all of this nose to work with here, so we may as well make the most of it, right? And I'm thinking, naturally, 20mm cannons. Seems like a pretty solid bet, and those... I mean, as cool as that might be, I think they might be a little bit ridiculous. Okay, so 20mm cannons added underneath the fuselage, as well as 2 big old drums of ammunition. So that's quite a lot, actually. We might be beneficial to just pop that down to maybe... let's go 4 rows, so 800 rounds in general, 200 per gun. Seems like a lot of ammo still, so I'd say that pilots are not going to be running out of ammo anytime soon with 800 rounds, so we should be good. And now, to give it a lick of paint. Now, we have her flying in the desert, and I do quite like a desert camouflage, so maybe let's go for some kind of tan. Okay, I quite like that. That's quite a nice brown colour there. Now, we can get a colour for painting on this. We're going to go with a little bit of a darker brown, I think, is what we're going to go for. I think something along these lines should work quite well if we set our projection to view and just turn our wrapping down a little bit. Hopefully it won't paint on the back of the aircraft, and we'll just give her a little bit of the old treatment with the brown paint, and hopefully when we take a look back I won't hate it quite as much as I did with the green camouflage in the last video. That was a little bit unfortunate then, but oh well. Okay, I've decided that I don't like it, so I'm going to go back. We're going to keep the same vibe, but that wasn't working. We're going to try just painting it from the sides first, I think, this time. Maybe with a slightly smaller brush. See how that goes. Okay, I'm not too... Oh, no, I've lost my colour. We'll call that close enough, and if we mess up, we'll just redo it all. I lost my colour there. That's a bit of a heartbreak, but if I get a blue here, so we're going to go for a bit of a lighter blue, kind of towards the whiter end of our values, maybe just drop the saturation. There we go, that's the kind of colour I'm looking for. And if we just paint the bottom in that kind of bright sky blue, honestly it's a bit too bright there. There we go, that's a little bit more like it. You can see that actually kind of camouflages with the sky. Hopefully. Yeah, that's not spilled over onto the top. We're doing all right there. Now, I would like to do a little metal ring around the front of these engines, which is where this could all go horribly wrong. So let's see what I can pull off. There we go. Some nice metal rings around the engines there. And we need some roundels, otherwise this looks just a little bit too flat, and because this does look quite a lot like a British aircraft, we're going to go with good old Royal Air Force roundel. We're going to pop one on the side, nice center stage, big and proud, and on the tips of the wings, like so. I don't think we want one on the tail, that's a little bit too much. And on the underside of the wings as well, just for good measure. There's a couple more things that definitely could go on this paint job. Most distinctively, honestly, this brown colour isn't really appealing to me anymore. I feel like it's just not quite what I was going for. Do I redo the whole thing just because I don't particularly like that? Does it seem excessive? It does a little bit, doesn't it? Maybe I can do some tweaking to how metallic it is. And if I maybe drop the smoothness a bit, up the detail, maybe that's a bit better? Is that a bit better? I think so. Drop the metallic a bit more. Oh yeah, that's a bit better. Okay, I can get along more with that. We'll call that good. So, yeah, sure, that'll do. Let's take this thing out for hopefully its final test flight. I'm running out of time for this video, so hopefully all is good here. But here we go. We're going to drop our flaps to the takeoff setting here, or more realistically, that's a landing setting. And there we should get off the ground fairly quickly. We've got pretty big wings, and we will see how badly the added weight... Oopsie doopsie, it seems that my fire cannon button is the same button as retracting the flaps. That's not too big of a problem, really. We've only lost a tiny bit of ammo. We got loads of it where that came from. And we are really looking very Beaufighter now. Obviously, there's a couple of differences. Mostly the Beaufighter is a lot prettier than this one. But, yeah, fully loaded. We're still getting up over 400, no problem. Hopefully, we can crack 440 still. I don't know if we'll crack 450, because there's quite a lot of extra weight. But on the flip side, we do have a lot of power. So, maybe? It's going to be a bit of a struggle, but there we go. There's 440. And 450 is... We're on the doorstep. We're over, I think. No. Oh, we dropped under. Hang on. Pitch down a little bit again. We weren't quite level. There we go. 454. 456. Come on. Stay level. Can we break 460? Maybe if I adjust the pitch a little bit on the props. Just a little tiny bit. 459. 460. There we go. 460 on on the deck, flying at sea level, and still the agility leaves a little bit to be desired. We'll try and improve the agility a bit, I think. That definitely could be a little bit better. Okay, couple of changes here. We have a all-moving rear section of the tail, so there's no longer those weird little edge pieces, a steerable rear landing gear, and a little bit more of the elevator is dedicated to the actual, like, pitching surface, as well as the whole tailplane being angled slightly downwards to just generate a little bit of natural pitch up rather than pitch neutral. So hopefully those changes mean we can pull a couple more Gs when we get up towards, well, really at any speed it should be. We were pulling about 4 before. I'm going to put it into a turn now. We're going to see if we can pull more like 6, 7. And, okay, not quite as much as that, but we have basically increased it by a quarter, I want to say. And maybe with flaps, can we get a little bit more out of it? You know what? I mean, it's not a lot of Gs, but we are going quite slow. So I'm going to say that's kind of not too bad on the old agility, given the heavy fighter kind of deal going on we've got. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the last thing for me to do is to fly over to the mountains, and we can do a little bit of an outro. Okay, so I'm just going to disengage the autopilot, which I set on because, yeah, it's been quite the journey. It's only over there, but we don't go the fastest in these early prop kind of designs. In a jet, this might be like, 20 seconds, 30 seconds if you go in Mach 1.5, but yeah, we're going Mach 0.3. So that's not exactly rapid, but there you go. There's something endearing about these propeller designs, though, and I do like them. So there will be more. But speaking of more, there's been so many suggestions that one man could never, ever get around to doing all of them. But don't think for a second that I do not appreciate it. The response to these videos has been absolutely astronomical, and it seems to be that other people covering this game are also seeing very great successes. I know Frantic has now got the game. Messier, obviously, is still absolutely smashing out the videos, and it's absolutely great to see that we're kind of got a little YouTube sphere going again. The old Sprocket sphere. It went for a long time, but I felt a little bit towards the end like sometimes I was getting to the point where I was on my own. I think Frantic got a little bit burned out on the game, so I was kind of shouting into the void there, but oh, I tell you, as soon as Geometric Internal comes out for Sprocket, there's going to be an absolute host of videos back for that game. And if you are somebody who watches Flyout but doesn't watch Sprocket, I can very strongly recommend you do try that game out, because it is a very similar vibe, if on the ground rather than in the skies. But yeah, enough of me thanking everybody for your suggestions and for the feedback on the videos. I will leave it here for today, and I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave a like, comment, and or subscribe, and I will see you in the next one, where maybe, just maybe, we'll be doing something that can break the sound barrier. That might be a good one for next video. Not done it yet, so why not? Anyway, I'll see you in the future. And you probably all want to see this thing crash, so I'll leave you with that one, because hey, why not? I'll see you in the future. Goodbye. Crikey. And as always, a huge thank you to this channel's patrons: Badger Calico Drake, CamGem135, Cody N, DJ Pete, Skavoon, Gunmaster929, Sad Cat, Yoki003, Jessica Casualty 6211, Less Urgent 11, Mark Mardley Invested, Nicholas K, Rulstars Brocken, Ryan Brody, The Canesian Emperor, Zerasheim, and Zeit Wolverine. Thank you very much for your support.